There comes a moment in every life when the map ends, when the familiar roads fade, when the rules no longer tell you what to do, and in that silent space, where uncertainty breathes and fear whispers, a decision must be made. Will you stand still as a manager of the past, or rise as a leader of the future? Before we begin this journey together, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe, because someone out there may need this message more than you know. Management controls the known. Leadership steps into the unseen. Management is about structure, schedules, and systems. Leadership is about conviction, courage, and clarity in darkness. You become a leader the moment you walk toward the thing everyone else avoids. Management ensures efficiency. Leadership ignites purpose. Processes organize work, but vision organizes people. A leader speaks not to tasks, but to souls awakening meaning in the mission. Management follows protocols. Leadership follows principles. Protocols can tell you how, but only principles tell you why. Leadership begins where rules no longer guarantee righteousness. Management requires authority. Leadership requires authenticity. People may obey authority, but they only follow truth. Your character, not your title, is your greatest command. Management avoids risk. Leadership accepts responsibility. A manager says, "This is not my fault." A leader says, "This is my moment." Responsibility is where greatness grows. Management asks for compliance. Leadership asks for courage. A leader invites others into a story bigger than themselves. Courage creates followers. Compassion keeps them. If these words stirred something inside you, if they reminded you of the leader you were meant to become, show it. Engage with this video. Your support helps this message reach the hearts that need it most. Before you leave, share in the comments. What kind of leader do you want to become? Remember, this management ends at the edge of comfort. Leadership begins at the edge of courage. Step to that edge and step forward. The world is waiting for the leader inside you. True leadership awakens the moment the map ends and certainty disappears. When everything familiar collapses and the systems you once relied on stop giving you answers, something powerful stirs within you. It is in those moments of confusion and discomfort that the world quietly watches to see whether you will freeze or rise. Management thrives inside the known. It organizes, maintains, and protects what already exists. But life does not always stay within the lines. Challenges arrive unannounced, problems appear without manuals, and people look for direction when the old way no longer works. This is where the seed of leadership breaks open. Leadership is born not from titles or authority, but from the courage to walk forward when the path is unclear. When others wait, a leader moves. When others doubt, a leader believes. When others fear the unknown, a leader embraces it, trusting that purpose grows in uncertainty. Human psychology shows that people naturally cling to security, predictability, and routine. We avoid risks because our minds seek safety. But leadership begins where this comfort ends. It demands stepping beyond the boundaries of routine thinking. It requires seeing possibilities when others see dead ends. It calls for emotional strength, choosing progress over protection, choosing growth over ease. A leader learns to withstand the discomfort of uncertainty and turns it into energy for transformation. This willingness to move first inspires others to follow. People don't remember those who maintained order. They remember those who carried them through the storms. True leadership also begins where management ends because leadership is deeply human. It deals with hearts, fears, hopes, and visions. When a situation tests morale, when people feel lost or overwhelmed, management tools are not enough. You cannot fix human uncertainty with policies alone. You cannot steady a trembling spirit with spreadsheets. In these moments, people look for someone who radiates confidence, someone who believes in the possibility of a better outcome, someone who speaks life into the tired and direction into the confused. That is the moment leadership emerges naturally. It is not forced. It is not assigned. It is awakened. And the one who chooses to step forward becomes the guide. Leadership begins at that intersection of uncertainty and responsibility, where the courage to act transforms ordinary individuals into pillars of strength that others willingly follow. Management is designed to keep systems running smoothly, but leadership goes deeper. It awakens purpose within people. A manager can organize tasks, schedules, and responsibilities, but a leader lights a fire in the human spirit. Purpose is what makes people move with passion instead of obligation. It transforms work into meaning and effort into devotion. When someone feels connected to a mission, they do more than complete assignments. They rise, they create, they persevere. Human sociology shows that every person desires to feel significant, to know their contribution matters, to believe they are part of something greater than themselves. Leadership taps into this emotional foundation and turns ordinary actions into purposeful motion. A leader understands that people are not machines waiting for instructions. They are living stories filled with dreams, fears, and unspoken potential. When a leader casts a vision that resonates with those inner stories, individuals begin to see themselves in a new light. They feel valued, they feel capable, they feel inspired. Purpose becomes the bridge between the work they do and the identity they hold. This emotional alignment cannot be managed into existence. It must be led. It must be spoken with conviction. It must be shown through example. A leader's passion becomes contagious, silently encouraging others to bring their best selves forward. When people understand their why, their energy shifts. They approach challenges with determination rather than resistance. They collaborate with enthusiasm rather than obligation. They become problem solvers instead of problem carriers. Leadership activates this transformation by giving meaning to the mission. It connects daily tasks to a larger vision. It makes individuals feel like vital contributors to a shared future. This feeling strengthens teams more effectively than any policy ever could. Leadership also ignites purpose by acknowledging the emotional reality of human work. People need recognition. They need direction. They need affirmation. A leader sees effort and speaks to it. A leader listens, understands, and responds. This emotional presence makes people feel seen, and feeling seen is one of the strongest motivators in human psychology. Purpose thrives where people feel understood. Leadership does not merely aim for efficiency, it aims for fulfillment. It reminds people that they are not just part of a system, but part of a story with meaning. And once purpose is ignited, individuals carry their work with pride, commitment, and a sense of destiny that no management structure alone could ever create. Protocols tell people what to do, but principles guide people on who they must become. Management relies on rules, procedures, and instructions to maintain order. These tools work well when situations are predictable and emotions are stable. But real life constantly breaks the script. Unexpected moments rise where the rulebook feels too small, too slow, or too mechanical to handle the weight of human reality. This is where leadership begins. A leader does not simply follow a protocol. A leader listens to conscience, wisdom, and moral clarity. Principles give strength when rules fall silent. They speak to the deeper part of the human heart, where decisions are shaped by integrity, compassion, and courage. Human behavior is rarely influenced by instructions alone. People respond to meaning, not just mandates. A rule may tell someone how to act, but only a principle tells them why it matters. When individuals understand the why, they make decisions with greater sincerity and responsibility. They don't just comply, they commit. A leader brings this commitment into the environment by embodying the principles they stand for. Their actions become examples, their choices become lessons, and their character becomes a guide more powerful than any written policy. People naturally follow authenticity because it speaks to their need for trust and emotional safety. Principles are also what help leaders navigate gray areas where no clear answer exists. Protocols are designed for situations that have already been predicted. But leadership is needed in moments that no one saw coming. It is in these moments that values like honesty, fairness, and empathy become a compass. When a leader chooses principle over convenience, followers feel protected and respected. This builds loyalty not through force, but through admiration. People want to follow someone who stands for something greater than themselves.
Leadership rooted in principles also creates unity. When people know what their leader believes, they gain clarity and direction. They feel grounded. They feel connected. Principles give purpose to decisions, meaning to actions, and dignity to the group's identity. They inspire people to rise above the minimum and reach for what is right. Protocols may create order, but principles create culture. They are the foundation on which trust, growth, and lasting influence are built. And in a world where circumstances constantly change, principles become the steady force that keeps people moving with confidence, courage, and conviction. Authority can make people listen, but authenticity makes people believe. Management often depends on titles, ranks, and positions to influence others. These are external tools that push people to follow instructions. But leadership works from the inside out. It speaks to the human desire for trust, honesty, and emotional connection. People naturally follow someone who is real, someone who is consistent, and someone whose actions match their words. Authenticity builds influence that no title can replace. When a leader shows who they truly are, strengths, flaws, hopes, and values, they create a bond that authority alone could never create. Human sociology shows that people gravitate towards sincerity because it makes them feel emotionally safe. They feel they can rely on someone who is genuine. A leader's authenticity also inspires courage in others. When people see a leader who is brave enough to be transparent, they feel permission to be honest about their own struggles, questions, and ambitions. This kind of environment unlocks creativity and collaboration because individuals no longer fear judgment. They feel respected for who they are, not just for what they can produce. Leadership becomes an emotional experience, not a mechanical transaction. Authenticity becomes a source of strength, allowing people to connect deeply with the mission and with each other. Authority might create obedience, but it rarely creates loyalty. Loyalty comes from emotional resonance. It comes from feeling understood, valued, and supported. A leader who operates with authenticity connects with the hearts of people, not just their hands. They celebrate effort, acknowledge mistakes, and stand with their team in difficult moments. This shared humanity builds trust that lasts through challenges. People will follow an authentic leader even into uncertain territory because they believe in the person leading them, not just the goal ahead. Authenticity also gives a leader credibility. Anyone can claim to be in charge, but only a leader who consistently lives their values earns true respect. When your actions align with your message, people feel your character rather than just hearing your instructions. They admire your integrity because it reflects strength of character. Authentic leadership becomes a mirror that encourages people to rise to higher standards. It reminds them that greatness is not about perfection, but about honesty, responsibility, and growth. Human beings are emotionally wired to follow the example they trust. That is why authenticity is more powerful than authority. Authority can demand, but authenticity inspires. Authority can control, but authenticity transforms. In every environment where trust matters, authenticity shines as the core of true leadership, guiding people not through force, but through the magnetic pull of genuine character. A manager often seeks protection from blame, but a leader steps forward and accepts responsibility even when the outcome is uncertain. Responsibility is the birthplace of leadership because it demands courage, maturity, and emotional strength. Human behavior naturally avoids ownership when things become difficult. People fear the judgment of others, fear failure, and fear the weight that comes with being accountable. But a leader willingly carries that weight. They understand that progress always asks someone to go first, someone to take the risk, someone to stand in front when challenges rise. Leadership begins exactly at the moment a person decides to stop pointing and start owning. Taking responsibility transforms an ordinary individual into a force others can rely on. Responsibility is not just about accepting fault. It is about accepting the mission. It is the willingness to say, "I will handle this," even when the path is unclear. This level of commitment gives people hope. It gives them confidence. It makes them feel they are not alone. Human sociology shows that people naturally look for someone who projects security during uncertainty. They look for an anchor, a steady presence, someone who will not abandon them when pressure increases. A leader becomes that anchor by embracing responsibility instead of escaping it. Their courage creates comfort for others. Taking responsibility also shapes character in powerful ways. It forces a leader to grow emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. It demands humility to learn, wisdom to adapt, and resilience to continue despite setbacks. Responsibility is a mirror that reveals who you are and who you can become. When a leader stands tall under pressure, others learn to stand taller themselves. Leadership becomes contagious because responsibility inspires responsibility. People begin to act with greater integrity, greater confidence, and greater purpose simply by witnessing it. Leaders who accept responsibility also build stronger relationships. People trust someone who is willing to protect them, speak for them, and fight for the mission. Such leaders earn loyalty not through fear, but through respect. They create a culture where individuals feel safe to take risks, knowing their leader stands with them, not above them. This environment encourages innovation because people no longer fear blame. They focus on solutions. Responsibility becomes the energy that pushes the team forward and fuels their belief in what they are working toward. At its core, taking responsibility is an act of courage that separates leaders from managers. Managers defend their comfort, leaders defend their mission. Managers look for excuses, leaders look for answers. Responsibility is the doorway through which every great leader must walk, because only those who embrace it can guide others toward a future worth believing in. Courage is the spark that transforms ordinary individuals into extraordinary leaders. Management asks people to follow rules and maintain structure, but leadership calls them to rise above fear and move with conviction. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is the decision to act despite it. Human sociology shows that people naturally avoid discomfort, uncertainty, and risk. They prefer familiar patterns because the unknown feels threatening. But a leader steps into the unknown willingly. They carry a belief strong enough to overpower hesitation. When a leader gathers the courage to take the first step, others feel inspired to step with them. Courage becomes a silent invitation that pulls people out of their comfort zones and into a shared journey. Leadership asks for courage because it deals with people, not just processes. People bring emotions, doubts, dreams, and insecurities. To guide them, a leader must be emotionally brave. They must speak truth even when it is unpopular. They must make decisions even when outcomes are unclear. They must stand firm when criticism rises. This emotional bravery earns trust. People follow leaders who are strong enough to handle uncertainty and kind enough to understand their fears. Courage creates a bridge between a leader's vision and a follower's belief. When a leader shows courage, it changes the psychology of the entire group. Fear becomes weaker, hope becomes stronger. People begin to think differently. They see problems as opportunities instead of threats. They collaborate more freely because they feel supported. They take initiative because courage gives them permission to try. A courageous leader becomes a mirror that reflects the strength people forgot they had. It reminds them that growth always asks for bravery, and that every step forward is a victory over doubt. Courage also reveals a leader's purpose. When someone is willing to risk comfort for what matters, others recognize the depth of their commitment. They see authenticity, conviction, and sacrifice. This inspires loyalty far beyond what authority could ever create. People feel emotionally connected to a leader who stands tall when things get difficult. They follow not because they have to, but because they want to. Courage becomes the heartbeat of leadership, the rhythm that keeps people moving even through storms. In every environment where change is needed, courage becomes the driving force. It shapes visions into action and followers into believers. Leadership asks for courage because courage is what transforms uncertainty into progress and potential into reality.